So here we are, we're at, well, it's at exactly 32 degrees. It's been in the fridge like that. I've had the yeast. I took the yeast out of my storage fridge. I put it to room temperature for an hour or two, and then I've put it in here. So it's about the same temperature. There we go. I did get a bit of yeast up here. I'm going to just give it a splodge around, wash it down. Yeah, done. Now I'm going to ferment this at 30. I'll put it in at 30. Yeah, so I'll dry hop. I'm guessing it'll be tomorrow morning. First thing tomorrow morning. I'll probably leave it at 30 and then I'll just bump it up to 35 before the end of the week and it should be finished. Well, I'm doing a bit of an experiment. I've decided, I forgot I had some clarity foam that I've been meaning to use in the fridge. I actually bought 2 vials. This probably isn't even enough to do one whole big batch that I do, but I'm going to chuck it in and see if it actually makes any difference. You're supposed to put it in with the yeast, but the yeast has only been in a few hours. We'll have a look and see how it's going though right now. I haven't even put a valve on it yet. There's no pressure building up or anything. I'll open that first. Well, that's in. Whether that's going to do anything or not, I don't know. Whether it works at 30 degrees, I don't know. So I pitched yeast, it was about 1:30 I think this afternoon, and it is now just after 6:30. So we'll say 5 hours, and it's starting to show stuff. The stuff's starting to happen. You can see that sort of streaming up, the yeast. It's coming to life. Now 7:39. So about an hour later, and it's starting to take off. The pressure's building up. So it's now a 10 to 9, which is what, an hour and 10 minutes since the last video. Now I did come out, this was up at heading up to, it was right on 10 psi, and I've let it out. I didn't have it on video. You can hear I've started letting the CO2 out, so that's built up quick. And as you can see, well, there's a few lumps floating around. There's no huge lumps at the moment. Now, I could have left that at 10ish. Excuse the going out of focus. But what I'm going to do this time, which I don't usually do, but just sort of to show people, is I'm going to try and dry hop through the bottom thing. And I might try and save the yeast, and you don't want it too carbonated, because if it's too carbonated, when you undo the bottom, it all foams everywhere and you lose all your yeast, and you try and storing it and it's really hard to. I've tried to do it before when I've had it at 10, and I keep it in the fridge, and like I put a lid on it as soon as I get it out of here, and I've tried to take a sample and it foams up, and then you put it in the fridge to try and make it settle down, and then you take the lid off and it foams up again, and you're just trying to, all you're trying to do is get a decent whack of yeast out of there, and it gets a little bit hard. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you really, really want to keep the yeast and make it easy and manageable, they're not the sort of brews that you do at high pressure. I mean, you can let the pressure go up after you've collected some yeast. If you're really keen, like people top crop, or we can top crop any yeast. But for some reason people like top crop, cropping the Kveik. They say it's a good way to do it, but I was taught at B school it's a good way to do it with any yeast. But it's a little bit sort of hard in pressure ferment. I mean, I could open up that and take some off the top. But I'm just as happy if I wanted to collect this. And I've done it before. All I do is I take the bottom off and then I get a big syringe. And I've probably got a few dead ones laying around. Give me a sec. Here's one I've used before, still hanging around, should be in the bin. And what I do, this is a little bit weird, but I stick that in the yeast and I pull up as much as I can. I usually you only need about 5 ml of Kveik to do another batch. Then I get my soldering iron and I melt the end of the syringe shut. And then I store that in the fridge. I know I don't have to sanitize these or anything. You know, you assume a syringe is sterile out of the packet. And then when I go to use it, I chop it off like I've chopped this one off. And squeeze it in. You can put it in a starter. Or, you know, I'd had 2 of these and I put them into a brew. But you can do it however you want. You can just take that off, pour some in a jar. If you had a second one, you can just put a lid on it. Put that in the fridge and then start your next brew from it if you want to. Just pour it in or whack it on the bottom and open it up. So many ways you can do it. 10:15. And she's going. I'm going to bed. Having an early night for a change. It's now 11:30 AM. Oh, so what's that? Oh, it's nearly about 22 hours, and the krausen has actually dropped. Well, it's under pressure, but it's not under much pressure. So it's time to dry hop. I was going to try and collect some yeast, but I don't think that's going to happen this batch. And as much as I don't want to waste that lovely beer in the bottom, I think I'm going to dry hop through the bottom, just for the hell of it. Let's go, eh? So we're in. It's a bit hard to see in this murky wort, but I can see there's hops floating around. There's still a couple down the bottom, but there's a ton up the top here. Okay, here we go again. It is now about 7:30, 8 o'clock. On the second day I'm starting to lose track of hours. I should think before I press record. But I don't know, I did this afternoon. Lunchtime or something. You've probably seen the video of the Brewzilla hints and tips is where I actually dry hopped this latest batch, and there is a video where I explain why it's all up there. That's my fault. But we were at that 31.5. I bumped it up to. Alright, it's 10:30 PM. So what's that? I think it was 1:30 I pitched the yeast. That's at 33 hours. It's nearly done. I might as well turn it up. I'll turn it up now. I'm just going to bump it right up, just to finish it off. What's the point of mucking around? I'm not even sure if the heat belt will get it that hot, or set my house on fire. There you go, 35, that'll do. Alright, it is now Monday. I haven't bothered showing any more footage because it really hasn't been doing anything, but I've just let it sit here. She has to be done by now. Everything's settled right down to the bottom. There's no action whatsoever. So it was brewed on Tuesday, pitched on Wednesday, because there was no chill. She's well and truly done. I should take a reading, but she's been at 35 degrees for a good few days now. It's showing a lot lower than I wanted, but it's looks like about 9 again there. We are moving. It's very slow compared to some of my other methods, but we are moving. We are dropping. The siphon's working. I'm going to make this one, try and make this review a bit quicker than my others. This is the no chill, gluten reduced, vegan Kveik. There's something else I've forgotten. NEXPA. And there's still more I'll remember later. Anyway, it turned out much better than expected. Even though I used Wurflock, PVPP, and Clarity Firm, which is why it's gluten reduced. Some would say gluten free. Did I say vegan? My mates have been telling me to put vegan in there too, because it is, it should be. It turned out really nice. It turned out about 4.3%. It finished about, it was about 1012 or 1013. When I took the original sample for the reading, it was at 35 degrees, and I forgot. And I measured it at 35 degrees just with a hydrometer, and it read 1009, and I went, oh no, I wanted it to finish high. Well, if you chuck 35 degrees in, it comes out at 1014. But if you chuck, I think 30 come out at 1012, and say 32-ish, which it probably was, because I sort of took the reading straight away, but it would have cooled down a little bit just from the transfer. So I don't know. It's about 1013, which is pretty good. It's sort of where I wanted it. So it's got a bit of mouthfeel. I use salts, the salts of an NIPA. It's all those things I mentioned. It could have done. I only dry hopped once, and that was on the first day of fermentation. As you've probably seen, it could have probably done with the second dry hop, but with the Kveik or Kveik yeast, that probably would have happened on day 2 or day 3, because it was done very, very quickly, and it was in the keg within 7 days. But those of you that are scared to use Werflock or clearing agents in your beers, if you're doing your NEPAs right, it doesn't matter, and they do help in the boil pot and for other things that sometimes you just don't want in your beer. Anyway, this is getting much longer than I wanted. It's just a nice tasting beer. The yeast, the hops are different to the Jedi, so it hasn't got that big whiny Nelson Sav thing going on. It's just Amarillo, Citra, and Mosaic in equal amounts. I think the dry hop was only 150 grams. So as I said, the dry hop could have been pushed a bit more, but the beer is only 4.3%. But I'm quite happy, and I will definitely be brewing another batch of this, without a doubt. I might mess around with the hops a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what yet, but I wouldn't care if I had to brew this again with exactly the same hops with the exact same recipe. Very, very happy with it. Cheers. I was scared that it was going to turn out crap at the start. It was an experiment, and this one worked. Cheers. Thanks. Like, subscribe, share. Da, da, da. Cheers.